Larry Sparano with some commentary. Hey there, how are
Yeah, good
you?
morning, Kent.
Good morning.
Interesting subject, raising its ugly head again following that shooting in church. Kent, I'm not a big fan of the NRA, never have been, but
Right.
when something like this happens, you have to give some credence to that NRA bumper sticker. When guns are outlawed, only outlaws will have guns. I
Right,
mean, that's
right.
that's hard to argue against following a situation like this.
But I
Would you
mean,
say?
yeah, I'd say that, but I mean, I think it gets to well, two things. One, the NRA normally says after these shootings that we have to go to condolences and we shouldn't be talking about the gun issue, except in the case where they feel it's to their advantage, which they feel is the case with this church shooting. But I mean, do we want to live? The more important story, I guess, is do we want to live in a society where if we're in church together, you and I say, Larry, cover my back while I go up to take communion. I mean, do we want to live in a society like that?
I mean, it's an ugly situation, but what is the
Uh-huh.
alternative now? If the parishioners were not armed in white settlements, Texas, what would have happened? There would have been more deaths and injuries. So, I mean, nobody wants it to have gotten to this point, but since
Right.
it's here, how do you combat it?
But I
Now,
mean, but I
I
mean,
think at the very least,
yeah,
they make the argument that there's existing gun laws. People should be
right,
prosecuted more vigorously, which is true to an extent. But I mean, some of these shootings are random, hard to predict ahead of time. Now,
right,
I'm all for better background checks, but
right,
those go only so far because you don't know what a mental condition of a shooter is suddenly changing,
right,
or some traumatic event that triggers him. That's unpredictable. It's hard to track. It's hard to keep track of everybody's mental health
right,
unless we go to a total police state.
right.
So, I think better background checks would be good, but they only go so far in effectiveness. I think there should be training courses
Right.
also. Whether they should be obligatory is another argument with the NRA because they always talk about the slippery slope.
Well,
Once you start making these rules and
right,
regulations,
sure,
where does
right.
it stop?
Well, I was going to argue just that point with you. I mean, you, in many of our discussions, you sort of revert to the slippery slope argument. But I mean, the slippery slope here is that everybody should have a gun. I mean, if is that the solution? Is that where we're headed?
Well, not
Have a gun
everybody should have
when you
guns, but you should have a gun to defend yourself if you want one. Again, there's no clear solution to this, Kent, but I mean, what clearly is not a solution
uh-huh.
is this calls for disarming everyone. Because look, there are so many guns out there now on the black market. They're easy to obtain. So, how do you stop that gun violence from bad actors when
Right,
you don't have any self-defense yourself? And, these shootings are popping up all over now. Part of it is copycat. Part of it, I think, is a social disintegration
right.
that we're experiencing in this country. And I think it's only going to get worse. And if there's no self-defense, then what do you have? The cops can't always respond immediately. I mean, this church shooting is a good argument that people should be able to defend themselves. Now, that could also lead to abuses, to situations where innocent people are killed in a crossfire or whatever. But again, there is no easy solution to this. Bumper stickers either way are
Right.
not convincing arguments.
But I mean, what's your sense of the solution? What should be done?
I
I mean,
don't know. I think they could do more with the background checks, but again,
right, right,
that only goes so far because a person's mental state could change overnight, or a person can become emotionally involved in something that sets them off. It's hard to predict, but I mean, total disarmament of the population, I'm uncomfortable with. Now, I live in a rustic area of Pennsylvania. Everyone around here has guns. The kids are raised with them for hunting when they're young, but
right.
everybody has guns. It's very easy to get gun permits here. And, there's a very low incidence of shootings, of murders, of misuse of weapons. But, that doesn't apply to all situations, especially in urban parts of the country. But again, I mean, it's a dilemma, Ken. I don't have any solution to it. But do you think the solution is to disarm the
Well,
population?
I'm not quite sure. I mean, I don't know if I told you this before, but I remember when I lived in Brooklyn, and I was in the Boy Scouts or the Explorers, I think.
Yeah.
And we had a rifle club, and we would shoot 22 rifles. And I would actually, I lived in the projects in Brooklyn, and the Boy Scout place was about a 2, 3, 4 subway rides away. But I would get on the subway, me and a friend of mine, with our rifles
Yeah.
in cases, and ride the subway to the Boy Scout meeting. I mean, and people didn't even notice. I mean, they didn't care. They didn't. I mean, those
Yeah.
were
So
different
did your
times.
early exposure to guns and rifle range shooting turn you into a homicidal maniac, somebody who was easily triggered?
No, not exactly. Not at the
Not
moment.
exactly.
Not exactly. Right.
We should look into that, Ken.
Right. Right. No. So so I'm on your side in this one. I don't know what the solution is either.
Yeah, I
But I
mean,
mean, I think,
I'm not a gun nut. I'm not a big advocate that everybody should rush
yeah,
out and have a gun.
yeah,
But I mean, look at these incidences where if people were not armed, there'd be
yeah,
no defense.
yeah,
This has happened time and time again. And again, my basic argument is that, which I'm thoroughly convinced of,
yeah,
uh, you take guns away from people, only outlaws will have guns. They're so easily to obtain now on the black market. You can buy them anywhere. Anybody can get a gun if they want. The bad guys could get a gun at will. And
yeah,
then if a citizen has no defense, what happens?
yeah,
Again, it's a bad situation, but I
yeah,
don't see any clear solution on
yeah.
either side of the scale.
I hear you. I hear you. All right, sir. Well, listen, Happy New Year, and we'll talk next year.
All
Talk
right.
to you tomorrow. Okay. Bye-bye.